All right. We are episode 2 of the Bree and Rachel show. We are chatting today about all things fascia. But before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit about how our week went. How did your week go?
Busy.
Yeah,
So busy.
it's been so busy at our at the clinic we're at right now, and it's we're so blessed and we're so thankful that every day more and more people they find us from where we were at before, but also just welcoming new clients and new experiences. What was one really awesome success story you had specifically with fascia? We're going to stay on the topic of fascia because we can get real all over the place real quick.
Okay, well, first things, I'm going to go off on a tangent because you're like, oh, and welcoming new clients. And I had a new client this week, and I did, kind of general stuff, nothing fascia specific, but just kind of general massage treatment. Um, and I just had such a great time with this new client
Cool.
that, like, it was one of those, like, how are we both here? Like, down to the point where we're, like, both almost wearing the same necklace. And, like, I'm cutting sugar out of my life this week. She's like, so am I. I'm like,
That's
what's
really cool.
happening? So we had just, like, a super fun conversation. Um, and I loved welcoming that new client. Like, it was so fun, I think, for both of us. So that was really awesome. But client success this week was I have a longer time client that came in and had knee pain from trying to do a strength class. And yeah, and so I was like, oh, okay, kind of do my thing, whatever, assessment. And I said, I really think that we should just focus on like the knee specifically today. And so I did. And so we did just specific like fascial stuff on her knee. I did a little bit of like rapid, did a little bit of like everything that I kind of do in there. But I found a lot of the pain and the tension and the like firmness that she was feeling, like, oh, it just feels so tight. It just feels so tight. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It does feel so tight. But instead of like, oh, it feels so tight, so we're going to get in and just like hammer down on those muscles, I held her knee and just moved with it and waited and waited and waited. And I spent an entire hour treatment on checking over hip assessment and working on one knee. So my client messaged me the next day and was like, thank you so much. My knee is like 75% better in 1 hour treatment of just doing fascial work on her knee. Um, and she's been like locked up,
Amazing.
can't walk for like 2 weeks.
Right? And that is awesome. And we'll get a little bit more into people that are on here that are our clients might be thinking, okay, give me more about what fascia is. And we'll get there. We just want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about our success stories first. And I know the client that you're talking about, and she's actually had that knee problem for 2 years. And, and, and for massage therapists that are listening that want to know kind of the ins and the outs and the like how Rachel and I use all these different tools in our practice. Here's an example. I've had that same client that she's speaking of for 2 years. And every time she'd come into me, she would mention her knee because I obviously knew about it. I knew she was going to physio for it. Nothing was
Mm-hmm.
working. But I would get in my own head about always having to give this person a massage, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
right? And so this is where it's tricky when it comes to like mine. Rachel and I have quite similar um, techniques and theories on our techniques, but it's a lot more gentle based, even though we have certifications that are very deep pressure
Mm-hmm.
orientated. We've learned those and we appreciate those, but we've backed off quite a bit, and we are now a lot more fascially orientated. And that's what we're kind of here today to talk about is to massage therapists, don't feel like you have to always
Do a
do a
whole
whole body
thing,
treatment every time they come in, especially if they have a chief complaint,
right?
right? It's like they're there, and I had my success story with a client would be today. He's been a long time client for 5 years. He came to me because his knees hurt because he couldn't run, and I did at that time not fascial release but trigger point, which is similar, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I did trigger point on his lower body for 3 treatments, and he was his knees have never hurt him since, and that was 5 years ago. So he obviously still comes to me and trusts me because I was able to help him with that one said problem. But I can't help him with this problem, and it was really frustrating me. And I was like, but I was in my head that I had to do a full trigger point treatment every time he comes in. And today or this week he came in and he was like, my elbow's still bugging me. And I said, can I just work on your elbow and arm and
Yeah.
shoulder today? And he's like, well, yeah, that's why I told you my elbow hurts. And I was like, hey, because in my head, I'm getting stuck in the fact that he was so good for so long that he would enjoy his massage treatments, right? Which is awesome because that's where we want to get our clients to be coming into us regularly once a month for maintenance, right? We don't want to have to always be fixing the same thing. God forbid.
Yeah.
If you're fixing the same thing, please refer out, find another therapist or someone else that can help your client and learn from that person. Find a mentor. That's how we do it. We all can't be a jack of all trades and help everybody with everything. So long story short, I was able to help my said client
by doing the same thing.
Just focusing on his elbow the whole time, very gently. I've pounded it, I've beat it up, I've done all the things.
I think I've worked on this elbow as well and done like rapid,
right? And we just keep beating it up. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna hold it for like literally the whole hour, and that's what we did. So, I guess now where are we going with this? Oh yeah. So Rachel, what is fascia in your opinion? Because we want to help you understand what fascia is. And massage therapists, you probably already know what fascia is, but we want to help you help your clients understand what fascia is. So what's fascia?
So if somebody asks me these things, or for say, if I go to do like myofascial cupping or something on someone and they haven't had it done before, and I'm like, oh, amazing, let's talk about why I'm wanting to bring this tool into my practice. And so what I tell my clients that fascia is this giant webby spider web that runs through every system in your body, and it attaches to skin above it, muscles below it. We have visceral fascia that's attaching to our organs and our diaphragm, and it's literally just this giant spider web over our entire insides that literally hold us upright. If we took away our skeletal system, our body would fall over. If we took away our muscle system, our body would fall over. If we had just fascial holding somebody upright, they would still hold upright with their fascial system if they had no bones and no muscle.
Wow.
What?
Pretty cool.
You ever been to one of those Body Worlds things? And they have like the fascial system that they've like probably spent, I can't even imagine how many hours like dissecting this off. And so there's like a fascial man, and there's no other structures, and it's upright. And it's like, okay, no wonder we have so much success when we just treat the fascial system, right? And so for me, it's like this kind of ooey gooey cornstarch and water spider web in our whole body.
Yeah.
That's literally what I tell people.
Yeah.
It's like that's how I envision it in my brain when I'm working on it.
That's 100% what it is.
Right.
And I like to explain to people a little bit, like I say that. And what I say is, because a lot of people come in and they're like, I like deep tissue massage. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. There's a time and a place, and you'll probably feel me working deeply on your tissues, but it's not going to be a deep tissue massage. And this is why. Cornstarch and water, like she mentioned, when we put cornstarch and water together, it makes a solid. When you punch it or hit it really hard, it stays solid, as does our body with a hard deep tissue massage. But if you go nice and gently, I'm going to show you on Rachel's hand, right? If we go nice and gently, and I'm talking like 5 grams of pressure or less, see how I'm just kind of taking the under layers of her skin and just moving it around? That's your fascial system. And if I push really hard, I've turned it off. It's bouncing me back. Okay? And your whole body will tense up, and that's your nervous system. But if I go lightly, okay, it will turn into a liquid, and it will unglue itself, and it will become a really liquid substrate. And we want more motility in our fascial system, because then it communicates with our brain. I said it is the highway to our nerves. All of our nerves are connected to our fascial system, kind of like a puppet string, right? So everything that I tell my body to do, or I don't tell my body to do, like breathing, my heartbeat, those kinds of things, it is organized by my fascial system. Okay. So when we talk to our fascial system with this light touch, we're allowing our central nervous system, which is our fight or flight or our rest or digest, to either go high or to relax. And when we can get it to relax, we can get everything in our body to realign itself. So I was watching this really cool documentary. I'm going to save you the
Link.
selling the selling. They're just trying to sell me something, but it was a really cool documentary, and it was like, if you align the body, your body can heal itself. And I thought, it has nothing to do with me or Rachel or any other person to be the person that fixes you. It's the, can we facilitate your fascia and your nervous system and the rest of your body in alignment to heal itself? End of story. Okay,
Totally.
that's what I tell people. Do I tell people that all in like the 2 minutes I just told you? No, I ease them into it as I'm talking to them. And when it comes up in treatment, a lot of people sometimes don't care. They're like, I don't need to know. But a lot of times awareness is key. And when I've shared with people that what I'm doing and why, I didn't know I was a why person until I started sharing people with people the why I did stuff. And it was like, oh, their whole body just relaxed into my hands as soon as they trusted that I had, their best intention at heart, and I wasn't just like a lazy massage therapist that didn't want to actually like get in there and do the deep tissue today. It was like, this is why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. And there was just like this like trust and this conversation to be had, right? Yeah.
I think what's really interesting about that too is like, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right? And like, okay, if your goal, what you feel is works for your body is a deep tissue treatment, great. Can we get there today? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do your fascial system and we work on all these things and getting that nervous system to go, and you still really want that deep tissue treatment, when you come back next treatment, now we've already done a bunch of this. It should be a little bit easier if you listen to, some of the things that we want to, address. If you do some of these things, like honestly, just like hydration, number one, right? You need to hydrate after a treatment first and foremost. That's just how it goes.
And every day, all day.
Right. But you need to hydrate after a treatment. And then when they come back in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and you still want that deep tissue treatment, okay, well, now your system is a little bit calmer. It's a little bit nicer. It's a little bit softer. Whereas if I'm just trying to get in there and the fascia is not ready to accept that, then we're not getting there.
Yeah, it's just going to bounce back.
So it's like, if you still want your deep tissue treatment, absolutely. But you need to address step 1, step 2, step 3, right?
Yeah.
To get to what your goals are anyways, like if that's what you're looking for, right?
What's your favorite fascial technique that you like to use? Because there's a lot of them, right? We hear a lot of different like words out there, like oh my gosh, let's think of a couple that we don't use. Guasha, Graston.
There's just so many.
Yeah, there's so many,
right?
What one is your favorite that you use in your treatment room the most?
NKT.
And so explain to someone like massage therapist, this is for you, that who knows what NKT is, okay? Because it's like neurological muscle testing, right?
Neurokinetic therapy,
right? So why would you consider it a fascial treatment?
So many things, because it has given me, okay, if I'm speaking to another therapist, right? It's given me the tools to find predictable patterns within our fascial systems to find where the dysfunction is coming from. Okay. So maybe we should link in the comments as well that fascial suit video, because like it's so cool.
Done.
There's a video that we were watching that this lady's on stage and she's talking about, okay, if we cause a fascial restriction and we like pretend this is Bree's fascial system and she's got this big wound up part here, and then she tries to go lift her arm, we'll just show them the video, but they pull on this. And so it's like, okay, what NKT has given me that I didn't get in massage school is, okay, maybe there's a restriction here that we're feeling over there, and now NKT has given me a predictable pattern of those fascial subsystems. Like, we have fascia that runs in specific lines throughout our body, crossing through our pelvis, all sorts of different things. And it's like, okay, yes, you may have a, back of your neck problem that absolutely can come from your calves because of where that fascial subsystem lays. It could come from other things, crossbody, all the things, but at least now I have some sort of pathway to figure out, okay, now I can test over here and see if that's giving me the success that I'm looking for in that treatment. And so
Awesome.
I think,
So
yeah.
you use NKT as a tool to help you find the fascia restrictions, and then once you find them, what's your favorite tool for after that? Like, what's your favorite way to release?
Well, it really depends on the person. My
Okay.
favorite
Yeah,
that I like,
your favorite.
yeah, I probably just holding
Holding.
and like
Yeah.
myofascial or maybe some cupping, but honestly, I feel like
Because
usually my hands is what I have
absolutely.
more.
And the reason I asked that and kind of like led into what I'm trying to say is the only way to actually change fascia is compression, right? Fascial cupping is great. Guasha is guasha. Graston is Graston.
But
But the
everybody's,
only way to change actual fascia is by compression and holding and waiting for the person's system to change itself. It has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with Rachel, and it has the person's system
yeah,
is the one that's going to allow that change. So we're following your fascial system. So Rachel has, I mean, she can beat anybody up if you want her to,
got
but
these
with
sharpened
the
yesterday.
elbows and all the things. And I'm learning to be less aggressive than I have been, but my favorite is trigger point, right? So I go deep. So this is where someone who does like deep tissue might want to come to me because you will think you're getting beat up, but instead of just going over that same painful area, and I think about people like when I've gone to a massage before, I was a massage therapist, and they just take their forearm over top of your like rib cage and scapula for like 5 different things and just like ow, 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 and you would be like, oh my god, this is like painful. I can't wait till she gets to something else that isn't this. And I didn't know anything. I was just like, this sucks.
But she's not going to get to something else because it's never going to release. So
Yeah,
she's just
she
going to
just
keep
keeps going
working at
over the
it.
same area, and you're just like, oh my god, she's going over bones and tendons and all the things.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I think that I mentioned in our episode 1, my partner Raven, like, was very, very painful to touch, which means her system was on fight or flight. Okay. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? So I didn't know anything that I know now about the nervous system and cranial sacral and a whole bunch of different tools. So what I decided to do was just like push on a point in her body. Okay, this is actually a trigger point. Push on a point in her body, and I would go way more than 5 grams of pressure. So I'm getting,
But like,
yeah, like
maybe a forearm.
I'm getting pushed off, right? But then I'm hanging out here long enough, right? 2, 5. I've hung out on a trigger point for 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
And I wait and I wait and I wait and I talk to my client, and they're not giving a shit because they're resting and they're relaxing and they're breathing and they're assessing the number. So to me, it's very important that they're a part of their own treatment because it has nothing to do with me. Like I said, I'm literally just a tool and a thumb and a hand with a little bit of knowledge. And I'm like, hey, what number do you got there? And they tell me. And I go, okay, let's just hang out here for a bit. And then we wait and we wait and we wait. Sometimes it's 30 seconds, sometimes it's 3 to 5 minutes. And once,
I don't know how long that was, but now it's gone.
right? But then once we wait, all of a sudden I can feel underneath my thumb, it just goes and it turns into liquid. That's the fascia ungluing itself from this like web and allowing the nerves to come back into play and everything slides again. So trigger point's my favorite, but I'm getting into a little bit more of the cranial sacral part where it's really, really light. But again, the myofascial release is my favorite, where it's like a little bit more pressure and you can feel the liquid it turn liquid underneath your hand, because I'm a like I need to be able to feel it. I can't just listen for some reason. So that's me. We're gonna put a couple links in the comments below, or the description with we'll probably put the fascial suit YouTube video in there. Also going to put some other interesting trigger point and some maybe myofascial release information in there, to where we've either gone to courses or where we're going to courses coming up in the next little bit for fascia. Because if you ain't treating the fascia, you're not treating the person.
Yeah.
I just want to specify that as much. we take our 2200 RMT course, and they teach you all about the skeletal system, the biomechanics, the anatomy, but they don't teach you about the fascia enough. Like I had the opportunity, I had the privilege to do, and you know what, we did Lenson, which was osteoarticulations, which even your bones have periosteum, which is fascia over your bones. So if you're going down that deep, you better be holding long enough to get the periosteum to change.
Right. And so that's what I was going to say too, is like, you know, the way that you go about doing your trigger point is also very different because, you know, and like how you've taught me to work through trigger point, neck, all the things, right? And while you're holding that trigger point, you're also moving and assessing fascia in another area. So like typically if Bree's going to work on my forearm, right, and she's holding that trigger point for so long, she's moving my wrist around. She's maybe pulling into that barrier of restriction into like the other end of the joint, the other end of the bone, all these types of different things. And by doing these things, we can address both that superficial fascia and the deep layers of the fascia as well. Depending on where you're working, you could maybe even get into visceral fascia.
Yeah.
And so it is really important to differentiate that, you know, like depending on what area of the body, what the person's complaint is, all those types of things as well, is like we can address different layers. And that's where you love doing that therapy because you can really feel those changes happening in the person. And what's amazing about it is you can typically feel those changes happening in someone's tissue before they even tell you, yeah, okay, that trigger point is gone. I have no pain left. You're like, yeah, I know, I felt that like 7 seconds ago.
Yeah.
But good, I'm glad you're with me.
Right? I love that.
And it's really interesting because it's like, okay, yeah, that superficial one is gone, but we still have some deep stuff to do. And we can still do that with myofascial techniques instead of, you know, like you talk about elbows up, erectors, and all the things, right?
And so, then it leaves the person on the table wondering what the fuck you're doing. and it goes to kind of like what we decided to do in this podcast is give both the person that's on our table confidence in what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So there we go. I get to hold my little mic. I
Yay!
wanted to hold this the whole time, and now it just popped off into my hand.
You're welcome.
I get to hold it. Is it even on? Is yours on?
Well, I don't know. Yeah?
Well, now mine's on. You might have not heard me the whole time.
So they probably still heard you
my
talking.
Little mic.
You still hold it down there.
Okay, fine. Anyways, we want to give, you know, the massage therapist who might be listening the little bit of nuggets along the way to have the confidence in your room to talk to your client about what the heck you're doing. Yeah. Because the number one thing that Rachel and I have done is tell our clients what we're doing, and then they can articulate that in their own body. We want to bring people back to their body. Do you know how many of us are walking around completely unattached to like our fucking fascia, let alone our bodies, right? So that's what we want to give you guys is the nugget to take home. And we also want to give the clients that are listening, whether they're our clients or anyone else's, the confidence to ask your massage therapist what they're doing and why. Because if they can't answer the why, I'd look elsewhere.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And give your therapist at least 3 to 4 sessions on the same thing, because Rome wasn't built in a day. That injury didn't happen in a day. And sometimes you walk out of the massage or the treatment, let's call it, in more pain. Rachel was working on my shoulder today, and just before this podcast, I was doing some deep breathing because it was really freaking painful. She was doing a little bit of trigger point. She did some fascia. She cleared my neck, all the things. And within 23 minutes of this podcast, I have zero pain when I could barely even move my arm earlier. So it just, you've got to give yourself some grace and to heal, right? And it might not even happen in 23 minutes. It might be 23 hours. Yeah. It might be 3 days sometimes.
And it also depends on how old that injury is, right?
100%.
If you're pulling on your bicep today,
yeah,
sure, maybe you need.
I just pulled my bicep today. It's going to be quick,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Get in as quick as you can to your therapist. Also wanted to just say to Rachel how good she's looking, and you can just tell that she's on a plan. She's doing, what are you doing?
Carnivore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it lazy carnivore.
Never. It's carnivore derived.
What's really interesting, fun fact about me, I love sugar so freaking much. Oh, the chocolate, all the things. I'm like, give me a bag of candy and I'm like the happiest human. we all know that's not great for my fascial system. We all
Great
know
for
where my
anybody's
pain is
fascial
coming
system.
from
Yeah.
is inflammation. And so where that's coming from is just like, yeah, I need to decrease some of this inflammation. I need to walk the walk for sure. Yeah, and it's just it's a new adventure, right?
I love it.
And it's great.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
And I mean, I'd like to reiterate that there's no really such thing as a diet. It's the regime in which you're on right now to get you to the place that you want to be. And right now, she wants to do a reset,
A reset is why.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
and it's not like, oh, Rachel's carnivore, like let's not put anyone in any box.
Yeah.
Because, in 20 days from now or whenever she decides that she wants to go back to, a different regime, then that's totally fine. So give yourself opportunity to find what works for you, but try and eliminate these said things that are not so good for us, right?
Yeah.
Sugars, seed oils, right? Try and get as much good stuff in our body as we possibly can without thinking about having to eliminate stuff. As a personal trainer for 23 years, the biggest, I guess, annoyance of that career was telling people that, like, oh, you shouldn't eat that, you shouldn't eat that, don't eat that. They're going to fail.
But here's the thing on that, though, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't eat
How do
that.
you
You
feel
shouldn't
about
that.
that?
We know that we shouldn't eat those things.
Yeah.
But if you're killing it 80% of the time, like, last night I had a glass of wine. That is not carnivore.
No.
But I'm following a diet or eating
regime,
plan,
yeah.
I should say,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Where I'm like, okay, 80% of the, I mean, right now, 98% of the time, I'm killing it.
Yeah, but that's
And the
what I
biggest
mean.
thing is like
It's like,
eating more
don't
foods.
tell yourself you can never have that said glass of wine.
No, but
or
maybe
you would have
just
failed already.
ask why. Why, like, oh,
Why
you
you
can't
want the
eat
wine?
that. Why do I want that glass of wine? Do I actually want that glass of wine? Do
Mhm.
I know what I'm going to feel like after I have it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I see what
And
you're saying.
maybe now I've put in all of this work on like trying to make sure that I'm maintaining what I want to maintain in my daily eating habits, all the things. And it's like, do I want to slightly throw some of that away to have this glass of wine today? You know what I mean?
And
And
there's
that's
always
why
going
I'm
to be
like,
a consequence.
okay, well, there's going to be like a dirty carnivore is what I'm calling it. You know what I mean? Or like, ew,
I'm getting you
that's
a
not what I
shirt that
meant.
says that.
Dirty
carnivore.
No, but like a lazy
Yeah.
carnivore, because I'm like, you know what?
Dirty.
I have crutches, and to set the expectation that I think I'm going to build Rome in a day, you fuck off right now, is like so unrealistic. So I'm like, okay, well,
That's going to be a course called the Dirty Carnivore. We're starting it. We're doing it.
I hate you.
Yes, everyone's going to walk around just like dirty, carnivore, and fascially unrestricted. Okay.
Okay, bye. I think we're done.